Hello and welcome. This is Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life. This is the podcast that will inspire you to take control of your mind and your mindset to go forward and build the life that you want to live. And I want to talk today about something that it affects pretty much anyone you know, and maybe yourself as well. It's an addiction. It's a set of habits. And I think that, because of this particular addiction, we can function with it, we can live with it, it's a part of our life. It doesn't always seem so bad, but if this is becoming a problem in your life, if it's taking up too much of your time, if you're seeing things on social media that make you upset, or perhaps this little device is actually physically hurting you, right? You stare at it, you burn your eyes on it, affects your posture with your neck. If it's starting to become a problem, maybe we can talk about what we can do to start working on and improving our smartphone and social media addiction. Okay, so today I want to tell you a story about someone who realized that this was a problem in their life and they reached out and we had a conversation. I'm going to give you some of the highlights of that conversation. I'm going to provide you with the advice that I had to develop for myself, and it's the advice that I gave this person. And again, I don't mean to give unsolicited advice, but if you're here, curious about what you can do, I'd like to share with you some ideas. I want to give you the number one behavior that you need to start. This is a behavior I've been doing for 5 years. Start it tonight. Start it right now if you have time. We'll talk about that. And I'm going to give you 5 questions to ask. Ask them every day. Answer them honestly. Check in with yourself, and we can begin this process of getting a handle on and understanding our addiction to social media and to smartphones. So if you're ready, let's go. So I'm a member of a lot of self-help groups on Facebook. I like to just see what people are talking about, maybe chime in and offer advice when it's necessary. And there was a fellow on there who asked a great question. I'll just read it for you. He said, "I've realized that I spend too much time on my phone and on social media. It divides my attention and my concentration span. It makes my thinking slow. What is the solution to this?" That's a great question. And that shows a lot of self-awareness. He realizes that he's spending too much time on the phone and on social media. It divides his attention, right? So maybe he's multitasking, or he's always on the phone, or he's always trying to sneak it in when he can. We've all been there, right? Eating and on our cell phone, in a meeting on our cell phone, scrolling social media while we're supposed to be having a conversation in real life with somebody. And it makes his thinking slow, which that's very interesting. And then he asked, well, what's the solution to this? What's the solution to my problem with social media and cell phone addiction, smartphone addiction? So I think if you've listened to this show, you know that you have an idea of what my answer might be. But if you're new or you'd like to hear it just the same, I'll give you now. These are the first 3 questions, or the first 3 points I think we all need to check in with ourselves on. Number 1, awareness. This particular question shows a lot of self-awareness, and that's great. I think that's the hardest first step, is to become aware that we even have a problem. So if you've become aware that this is an issue in your life, follow that awareness, right? Be grateful and glad for that awareness. Like, look, I have a problem, but at least I have some sense of what the problem is. So now let's follow that awareness. Let's ask ourselves some questions. Let's deepen that awareness. So we've built the awareness. We have the awareness. Thank God. Now we can say, step 2, let's start asking. Let's start following that awareness. How often am I on social media? How often am I on my phone? And what the hell am I doing when I'm on it? What am I getting out of this behavior? Following that awareness is going to take us then to the question of, can I get that stimulation some other way? Whatever it is that I'm doing on social media, however often I'm doing it, whatever it is that I'm looking at on my phone, what is that doing for me? And can I perhaps get that stimulation, get that fulfillment in some other way? And so this is where that behavior that I talked about has to come in. That behavior, of course, is journaling. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know that I preach journaling. It's one of the few things that I really would suggest to anybody at any point in their life. Begin keeping a daily journal. I think so often we all rush to change, right? We're aware that there's a problem, so I got to change. How do I change? Hey, can you guys tell me how to change? But I think we do a disservice to ourselves there by not observing the behavior long enough. It's like, and that's fair, right? It's like, if it's an addiction, if it's something that we don't like about ourselves, why would we want to look at it too deeply? I just don't want to do it anymore. But look, you're aware now of the problem. It's time to really dive in on the problem and start to understand it. So often we rush to change without observing what we're doing in the first place. And it's going to be that this observation allows us to better understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I don't want to go way down one rabbit hole here. I would say if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the YouTube channel for this podcast, because we have a whole playlist of videos that deal with addiction, multiple step programs you can attempt or you can put to work in your own life. I would also say, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you can scroll through the feed. Perhaps you can even search the addiction keyword. I'll tell you what, reach out to me directly through Facebook Messenger. I will send you the addiction episodes where we really dive in on how I beat coffee, marijuana, pornography, all these really, really hard to beat addictions with processes that you can put to work in your own life. But the story of my conversation with this guy does not end there, because after a little bit of back and forth in the comments, he DM'd me and he made another really important point. He said, yeah, but I use social media to communicate with my friends and my family and to consume useful and uplifting information, to talk to like-minded people. I don't want to completely cut out social media and smartphone usage from my life completely. And I think that's a damn good point. I think that's a very important point. It's not all evil out there. There's plenty of evil on social media. There's plenty of stuff we see that corrupts us, that makes us upset. But there's also a great benefit to a lot of that information. We can't lie about that. Yes, the algorithm has got us all figured out. Yes, we're hopelessly addicted to it. But it's not all bad, is it? It's really not. Surely you see things that inform you, inspire you, educate you, right? But surely if we're spending too much time on it, we can start to reduce that time. We can still get the benefits, and we can lessen the harm that we do to ourselves. So let's talk about that. Again, number one, keep that journal. Observe your behavior. And just as with addiction, I have multiple episodes on journaling, and maybe it's time to do another one. I think I've said that already, so now I have to make good on it. Another journaling episode is coming. But the journal is a place where you tell your story. It's where you become very, very honest and frank with yourself, because no one's going to read it, right? This is a chance for you to sit down privately and say, what am I getting right? What am I doing? What am I getting wrong? What do I want out of my life? Be honest. And if it's a problem with smartphone and social media addiction, write about that in your journal. Take time every day to just say, look, I'm on social media way too much. I'm watching way too many Andrew Tate clips, or I'm watching way too many of these hustlers and these influencers, and I want that life. Okay, fine. Be honest. The things I'm seeing are starting to mold the way I see myself and the way I desire things. I'm not saying to stop this behavior, but examine it. Deepen your understanding of yourself and what you're doing. And then ask the question, at what point does my smartphone and social media usage become unhelpful or unhealthy? What is it? At what point does that change, right? I see lots of good info. I see motivation. I learn about new workouts. I learn about new things to try in talking to women or in business, or I learn a new technique for my art or my hobby. But at what point does that usefulness and healthiness stop? And what point does it verge into unhealthy? I'm hurting myself. I'm getting upset. I'm wasting my time. Be very clear and be very honest. Where is that line? And so this guy that I was talking to, he took issue with one point that I made, that question that we asked earlier. How can I get this stimulation in some other way? That's a fair question. What the hell is Patrick talking about? The phone is so easy, right? The phone is, we just scroll. It's so easy. And by now your feed is totally tailored to you, showing you things that you want to see. And it's hard to believe that there is something equal, something better than the social media feed for you. Something more appetizing, something more easy, something more consumable. But I got to tell you, there is something better out there for you. So now ask yourself this question. What content do I enjoy consuming via social media? And what do I like about that content? And so Actually, where this guy went is he said, well, I actually like social media for communicating with friends and family. Okay, well, the solution here is pretty obvious then. Go do that in the real world. I'm not saying stop messaging your friends who live far away, but if you have a chance now to do a little bit less of that and to actually go out and have real world conversations, real world interactions, let's go there. And of course, you're going to object and say, well, that's hard. I don't know anybody. I'm antisocial. I hate everybody. I just like communicating on 4chan. That's fine. But see, you've asked the question, how can I stop this obsession with communicating on social media? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is going to be easy. I think the phone, social media has conditioned us to believe that life can be lived in bed. Life can be lived on the couch. But if you're sensing this awareness now of the pain or the lack of movement, the lack of progress, an emptiness in your life without real human interaction, that's your call to adventure. That's your call to action. That's your call to begin building yourself. Get out in the world and try. Even if it's when you're at the grocery store or, I don't know, you go to a church group, you go to some live event, just talk to somebody for 5 minutes. That's a start. It's got to start somewhere. And so if we go back to the first part of that question, what kind of content do you enjoy? And so then if we go back to the first part of that question, what kind of content do you enjoy? Well, now the challenge for you becomes, and this is the challenge for me, no doubt, was to take some time away from consuming, from the scrolling, from the sort of mindless, ingesting of other people's ideas, and start creating your own content, right? Start posting your thoughts publicly. Start a blog, start a podcast, start doing TikTok videos. DM people that you like, or DM other users in the same groups as you who have similar interests. Talk to them, ask them for an idea, give them a suggestion. See, we're taking all this information in. It is necessary for us to start outputting our own thoughts. And you're going to say, well, it's not going to be very good and no one's going to watch. It's like, so? The problem is not to do with other people looking and listening and watching you. The problem is with you and your addiction to taking in other people's ideas through the black mirror, if you will. And so that's the leap I had to make, was to stop being an open container for others to fill with their thoughts all the time. And yes, I'm quite aware that I'm filling my head or filling your head with my thoughts right now, but I'm telling you, am I not, that the leap we have to make is to stop being that open container, stop letting your head be filled with the thoughts of others all the time, and start getting your thoughts out into the world, onto paper, onto the digital blackboard of Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or your blog or your vlog, whatever it looks like. Because through that process, we begin to more deeply understand our thoughts. We see where they're poorly formed, or we don't even understand what it is we're thinking. And there's the invitation to now begin to understand yourself and what it is you're doing and what it is you want. And of course, like I said, it's going to start slowly. It's going to start badly. It's not going to feel as warm and fuzzy as just scrolling the feed. Just get on the couch, pull up that blanket, scroll the feed. Oh, that feels good. This is not going to feel like that at first, but I can tell you the more journaling you do, right? The more creation, the more thinking, the more producing, the better it's going to feel, and you will come to be just as addicted to that as you are to consuming. Right? This is about growth we're talking about. This is about becoming who you're meant to be. And the problem with the scrolling, the problem with the social media is that problem of constant consumption, mindless consumption. Well, now it's time to do some mindful producing of your own ideas. Start with journaling and ask yourself those questions. Follow that awareness. Ask yourself, how often am I on social media? What am I getting out of it? Can I get this stimulation in some other way? And if not, well, what is it that I like about social media? What kind of content do I consume and what do I like about it? Ask these questions, answer these questions, and those topics that you enjoy consuming, you'll no doubt enjoy writing, speaking, making videos about. Don't worry about who's going to see it. This is about you becoming a producer and the writer of your own life story. And so he asked me, well, what do you mean? Like I should write a book? And I said, now that would be a great, great thing to do. And it might take a lifetime to have enough to fill in a book, or maybe you could write a book right now with all these thoughts you have. Have you thought about that? Why not try? So I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to get in touch with me through Facebook. Would sure love you to check out the YouTube channel if you're just listening. Subscribe over there. Drop a comment if this stuff is useful. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify if you have time. And until we speak again, please remember that better is possible.